everybody, so this intro is actually being filmed posthumously. It's actually the 2nd of May today. Don't ask why I'm filming the intro so late, it's just because. Anyways, this is my o.w.l.s Magical Readathon 2020 vlog. It's a month-long Harry Potter inspired readathon. I took part in it last year and I really enjoyed it, so I decided to take part in it again. This readathon was created by G from o.w.l.s, and I will link her video below explaining the whole readathon, as that's kind of like the best way to find out and have it explained to you. The very basic explanation though is that it's a readathon inspired by the exams that you take at Hogwarts within the Harry Potter series. In April we have the o.w.l.s, and then August there's the newts, and the books you read are the exams you're taking. So the prompts to decide your TBR are all inspired by the subjects that you take at Hogwarts, and you can decide to work towards a specific career, so you have a bit more direction in what you want to read. G has honestly put so much effort into this readathon, and the career guide is amazing, and this is genuinely one of the most creative readathons that I've ever taken part in. I've decided to work towards the career of major visual arts, which is basically the job where you make the photographs in the magical world move instead of just being still images. Considering my usual job does involve photography, I thought this would be quite an appropriate career to do. So my TBR for this readathon is as follows. So for astronomy, the prompt is to read the majority of a book when it's dark outside or like in the evening, and for that I plan to read Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. This is a queer retelling of Greece. It's under 300 pages, so yeah, there's that. It's weird doing the TBR after I've read all these books. It's just feels weird. I should have planned this better, but here we are anyway. For charms, the spell is Lumos Maxima. The prompt is to read a book with a white cover. So I'll be reading George by Alex Jr., which is a middle grade book about a transgender kid. A very short book, which I've heard nothing but good things about, so I am looking forward to reading it. For divination, the prompt was to assign numbers to books from your TBR and then use a random number generator to choose which book you're going to read. And I will insert the clip of me doing that right now. Okay, so I've picked 11 books for my TBR, and I'm gonna generate a number now to see which book I'll be reading. So looks like I'm gonna be reading The Sun Is Also a Star for my divination exam. For the record as well, on that random number generator, I literally just googled random number generator and the first number it came up with was 5, so I wasn't cheating. But I actually pressed generate, it said number 1. So yeah, like you saw, I'm going to be reading The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, which is a young adult romance novel. And for history of magic, the prompt is to read a book featuring witches and wizards, and for that I decided to listen to the audiobook of Serpent and Dove by Shelby Maherin, where a witch is the main character, and I believe it's like an enemies to lovers romance where she has to marry a witch hunter. However, you will see what happened with that audiobook, because yeah, you'll see. And then there are optional seminars that you can do as an extra. So I've decided to do the Mermaid Linguistics seminar, and for that you have to take the herbology exam. So read a book that begins with the letter M. So I'll be reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. I do have books that match every single other prompt, but those are the ones that I prioritise. So yeah, now you'll see what I actually thought of his books. So I'll pass this on to myself from the beginning of April. So 3 days into the readathon and I'm only doing my first update. Good times. Anyway, I have been reading The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I decided to start with my longest book first. I thought that'd be a good strategy, I guess. Well, technically Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children is the longest book I read, but that's kind of like one of my bonus books. So this is one of the books I like have to read. I have about 100 pages left of it, and I'm actually really enjoying it so far. I'd heard before going into this book that the romance was quite like insta-love, and I don't usually like insta-love within books. It usually kind of annoys me, but for some reason this isn't annoying me that much. This book is a really quick read as well. I basically flew through it, so I'll easily be able to finish this by the end of today. I've also started listening to the audiobook of Serpent and Dove by Shelby Maherin. I'm about an hour and a half into it, and I'm not really feeling it or enjoying it that much at the moment. I'm not really sure why, because it's definitely not a bad book. As the book, it doesn't necessarily have chapters. At least the audiobook anyway is set out in the parts of the book, and part 1 is 3 hours long, but the second part is 7 hours long. So I have about an hour and a half left of part 1, so I'm gonna stick it out to the end of that part, see how I feel. And if I'm still not liking it, I do have another audiobook that could fill the same prompt, and it's a much shorter audiobook as well, because another thing to mention is that the audiobook for Serpent and Dove is 14 hours long, so obviously I want to be like enjoying what I'm listening to and not like putting my time into a really long audiobook that I'm not enjoying. I'll believe it next when I finish reading The Sun Is Also a Star. Time has passed since my last update and I finished reading The Sun Is Also a Star. I'm giving this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I never actually talked about before what this book is actually about. So this book is about Natasha and Daniel, and it takes place over one day in New York City. Natasha is Jamaican and her family are getting deported that night back to Jamaica. Daniel is Korean American and he's going for a Yale admissions interview because his parents want him to be a doctor, although he doesn't necessarily want to be a doctor himself. Both of them have kind of a chance encounter and they have a day together where they fall in love and they learn stuff from each other. Natasha is the kind of person who is very scientific. She doesn't think the universe like has a plan for her or anything and is generally like pretty cynical. Daniel is very poetic and believes that the universe is telling them, and by them I mean Daniel and Natasha, that they're meant to be together. I'm definitely more like Daniel than Natasha. I don't really believe in the whole like fate and destiny thing of that, like, oh, we're meant to be together because of this X, Y and Z reason. But I definitely think that you need to be passionate about something, especially your career, and you don't need to do something just because you should do, like Natasha believes. Considering I don't usually like insta-loving books, I actually really enjoyed this one, and I didn't find the fact that they basically fell in love within a few hours not that irritating, surprisingly. I definitely liked this more than Nicola Yoon's other book as well. I read Everything a few years ago and I think at the time I gave it like 4 stars or something, but over time I realised that the ending wasn't that great for me, like especially the plot twist and kind of the representation in that book too. So I'm generally happy that I enjoyed this book more than that, and I think if she releases another book I will read her future releases. Also I have to say as well, the epilogue for this was absolute chef's kiss. So we are on day 4 of the readathon. I've gotten 3 hours into the Serpent and Dove audiobook and I've decided to DNF it. This book, it definitely isn't bad. I'm just not like vibing with it or fully invested in it, and considering I'm feeling like that when I've already listened to like a good amount of it, I think that's probably a bad sign. And also considering the fact that the total length of the audiobook is 14 hours, I'm basically just gonna quit whilst I'm ahead. Who knows, in the future I may come back to it. Saying that, reading the synopsis, I thought the plot was quite interesting, but where I finished the book, basically what's happened is what we were told in the synopsis. I thought the plot was interesting, but executed it was kind of dumb. I don't know. So instead for, I'm trying to remember what exam this was for now. So instead for History of Magic, I'm going to listen to the audiobook of The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I actually started listening to that audiobook last year in July for the reading rush, but I never got around to finishing it. Not for any bad reason or anything, that it's just the way things planned out. So I am going to start listening to it from the beginning again because I only listened to about 2 hours of it and it's a fairly short audiobook. It's just under 6 hours long. So that's what I'm going to be reading instead now. Let's go. Sorry that I forgot to do an update halfway through, but I've just finished reading listening to The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman and I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It's my first ever Neil Gaiman book that I've read, and yeah, I really liked it. It was really weird and magical. I feel like there's not much else I can say about this book really. The only way I can really explain it is by reading the synopsis. The story began for our narrator 40 years ago when the family lodger stole this car and committed suicide in it, stirring up ancient powers best left undisturbed. Dark creatures from beyond this world are on the loose and it'll take everything our narrator has just to stay alive. There's primal horror here and a menace unleashed within his family and from the forces that have gathered to destroy it. So yeah, very mysterious and weird, and a very short audiobook as well. So my next book I'm going to read is Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. I did read about 13 pages of it last night because I am choosing this for my, it would help if I could remember what classes these are actually for. So this is for the astronomy exam and I have to read the majority of this book when it's dark outside. Or I think Chief and Rose said that it can be read, it doesn't necessarily have to be dark outside, it can be just like in the evening, you know. So it is day 9 of the readathon and it's about time I give you an update on what I've been reading. So I have been making my way through Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. I don't know, I was really excited to read this book. I don't know, it just seemed like it was up my alley and it was something I was going to rate quite highly. At the moment, we are 160 pages in and I feel like this is going to be about like a 3-star read. This book is definitely not like bad at all, it's just not something I am loving that much. I guess the main thing that was like initially irritating me was our main character Ollie. He's very socially awkward, and especially because he's just moved to a new school, he's just generally a bit like awkward and anxious, like meeting new people, talking to people and stuff. And obviously some people do genuinely have social anxiety, which is like absolutely fine. Like, I'm not having to go at anybody for that, but it's only kind of irritated me because I recently read Yes No Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed, and the main character in that, well there's 2 main characters, but the main male character in that but is also very like anxious and socially awkward and stuff, and would like overthink like everything he said in that. So it kind of feels like I've read about the same or very similar characters twice but in different books. I don't know, I just like a bit of variety in book characters, and the thing is I can't really have like a go at them or like say that oh the characters just need to get over it, because I also like kind of like overthink like social interactions and stuff. So maybe I'm a hypocrite. I have about 120 pages left of this, so I will probably have some more solid thoughts by the time I finish it. Because that book is for the prompts where I have to read it mostly at night, I am going to start a new book today. I am going to start reading George by Alex Gino. This is for my Charms exam. It's a middle grade book, it's only about 200 pages and the font size is massive, so I honestly think I'll be able to whack this out in a couple of hours. So yeah, that's the plan for today. So I am 106 pages into George, and this book is a lot sadder than I expected it to be. I think I'm only just sad because I feel really sorry for George. She's kind of going through it at the moment essentially. So to explain what this book is about, so George, her gender assigned at birth was a boy, but she knows she's not a boy, she's a girl, and her school they're doing a production of Charlotte's Web and she wants to play Charlotte. When she goes to audition for it, her teacher flat out says no, you can't audition for Charlotte, the girls will, because you're a boy. So far I've had a lot of a struggle that she wants to tell people, she wants to let like her best friend know that she wants to be a girl, but it's quite hard for her to do when everybody sees her as a boy when deep down she knows she's not. And yeah, like I said, it's quite sad at the moment. Fingers crossed there's a happy ending, you know. It's a middle grade book, so like probably gonna have a happy ending. I doubt that it's gonna like end on an absolute downer, you know. So it is Easter, it's officially Good Friday in the UK, hence why I decided to make a bit of an effort, dress myself up a bit even though I'm stuck at home. But one thing I have done whilst I'm stuck at home is I finished reading George by Alex Gino, and I'm going to give this book a rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was genuinely fantastic. I mean, I had like high expectations for this book because I'd heard a lot of hype around it, it's won a lot of awards, and I'm so glad it lived up to my expectations. It had the happy ending that I wanted. This is definitely an important book that every kid should read really. Yeah, it was equal parts sad and equal parts heartwarming. It had a good balance, because when I last updated in the first half I was feeling quite like sad just because I felt sorry for George so much. You know, she was dealing with like bullies and like struggling to like come out to her friends and family. So yeah, this is a fairly old book, I guess. It came out in 2015, but if you haven't read it already I would definitely recommend it. It's only taken me like 2 hours to read, and I don't necessarily think you should be put off by the fact it's a middle grade book. I have been a terrible vlogger, so let's give you an update on the past week. So today it is Sunday, and last Sunday I finished reading Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The last quarter of this book really pulled it through for me. It actually didn't necessarily end in the way I expected it. I thought a certain thing was going to happen, but it happened in a different way, I guess. Not to say that the ending of this book is like completely unpredictable and comes out of like nowhere. I had a certain like prediction in my head of how this was all gonna like be wrapped up, and my prediction wasn't correct essentially. But yeah, this is definitely a good book. When I was like writing my review for it, I did still feel, I guess, a bit mixed about it. Who knows, my full star rating might change in the future. I might give it like a 3.5, whatever. But yeah, not much else to say. It was a good book, diverse characters, good story. What I have been reading this past week though is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. This is like my bonus book. This is for the phibology exam prompt, and I'm doing this as like the extra credits for the Mermaid Linguistics seminar. I am currently 249 pages into this, so I have just over 100 pages left really. I think the official page count is like 380 something, but there is like bonus content at the back, like it's got a preview of the sequel and and stuff. I am really enjoying it so far. It's a good story. It's leaving me wondering what's going to happen next. It is quite like spooky and weird, I guess, especially within like the first part of the book. It's quite spooky. Wouldn't recommend reading it before you go to bed, to be honest, but that's probably just me. I'm an absolute wuss, so I imagine most people will probably be fine. The story is kind of centered around these found photographs. It tells the story of this group of peculiar children who live in this orphanage on an island in Wales. There is a little bit of a romance like happening at the moment, which I don't think is 100% necessary. It honestly could do without it. It could just remain as a friendship. That's kind of my only real complaint at the moment. So yeah, I hopefully will be finishing this early next week. I should mention as well that with having finished Early Mostly Devastated, I have basically done all my required reading to be a major of visual arts, so pat on the back for doing that. The other day as well, I did start listening to the audiobook for The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I've been spending so much time playing Animal Crossing, like literally hours and hours a day. I might as well just start listening to an audiobook whenever I play it, so I can actually get some reading done at the same time. I haven't listened to that much of the audiobook yet, only about half an hour, so I don't really have a lot of solid thoughts on it yet, but I'm listening to that audiobook for the Defence Against the Dark Arts prompt, where you have to read a book that is set by the sea. But yeah, a bit more about the book itself. It's a young adult historical fiction novel. It's about a young bisexual British lord who embarks on an unforgettable grand tour of Europe with his best friend slash secret crush. Yeah, that was my update for today. Hopefully we'll vlog a bit more within the next week. At least I'll try to remember to. So yesterday I finished reading Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I ended up giving this book 3.5/3.75 stars. It's a weird one because I feel like giving it 3.5 is too low, but also giving it 4 is like slightly too high. I did really enjoy this. I think in the last part it kind of flagged a little bit in terms of the action. I think I preferred the first half a lot more, and I think the overall concept and idea for the story to use antique found photographs to create a story and integrate them into the book is really interesting, but I can understand why some people would think that makes the plot kind of messy, and some of the links between the story slash the writing was a bit plonky. So kind of like the way it was done, it was explained that Miss Peregrine had a photo album of all the peculiar children, and so Jacob would be like, it reminded me of, or I saw a photo of that exact thing happening in the photo album. So sometimes it was a slightly weird link like that. For the most part the concept worked, especially when it was photos that he had been shown by his granddad, if you want to call this like continuity ever. One of the main characters in the book, who's one of the peculiar children, is called Emma, and we understand that she has a very close relationship with Jacob's granddad when he was younger and he still lived in the Home for Peculiar Children. And towards the end of the book there is a photo of them, of Emma and Jacob's granddad Abe, lying on the grass together. I should really say that it's Emma in quotation marks, because obviously it's like a found photograph and it's not actually of the character called Emma, it's of a random woman. But earlier in the book there was pictures of Emma. So Emma's like ability slash her peculiarity was that she could create fire. So there's a picture earlier in the book where she is holding a ball of fire. So this picture here we understand to be Emma, and there are other pictures of her within the book as well. But then this picture is featured towards the end, which we are told that that is Jacob's granddad Abe, and then that is Emma, when Emma in that photo clearly looks quite different to previous pictures of her, of like the young girl and stuff. To clarify as well that, without giving away spoilers, that within this world the peculiar children never age, so they're always stuck at the same age. So the fact that some photos of Emma show her to be younger, and that picture just showed of her with Jacob's granddad, they don't just look different because they're older, we are told, and it is understood that Emma has always been the same age. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, that's just like a little continuity error I kind of noticed. And I think as well, despite the fact that this book finishes quite open-ended, so it finishes where you'd expect the second book to begin straight away, and some things weren't like completely wrapped up, I don't think I'm going to be continuing with the series. I don't really have a strong desire to read the sequels. I might watch the film at some point, but I did just watch the trailer before filming this little clip, and the film looks very different to the book. And I did actually watch the trailer a few years ago as well when it came out, just because, you know, I'd heard of the book, just want to see what it was about. But now after reading the book I can see that it seems to be very, very different. For some reason the characters of Emma and Olive, they decided to switch like their peculiarities. And the character's Miss Peregrine. In the book she's like quite old, but the film is played by Eva Green, I believe, who's like a young woman. So now I've done all my like essential reading for the readathon. I'm gonna move on to some of like the extra books I had lined up. So for potions, the prompt is to read a book that is under 150 pages. So I've decided to read Ariel by Sylvia Plath, and I don't think I really need to explain too much what this book is. It's basically just a collection of some of Sylvia Plath's best known poems, and it's only 80 pages, so I will almost definitely finish this today, and that will probably be what my next update is. Yesterday I finished reading Ariel by Sylvia Plath, and it was really good. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know an awful lot about Sylvia Plath's like life and career, but reading this collection of poetry really made me want to learn more about her life, just so I could kind of gain a greater understanding of what the poems are actually about and that kind of thing. In particular, there's a set of 4 poems, The Bee Meeting, The Arrival of the Bee Box, Stings and Wintering, and they all use kind of like beekeeper imagery. I had a little look into what those poems were about yesterday, and it's believed that those poems were written like before she took her own life, and about how she kind of feels like she doesn't have a support system, but then she does. Also, there's a poem in here that I remember that I've actually read before, because in year 7 we did a whole unit about poetry, and this is one of the poems we read. It's the poem called Your, Y-O-U''R-E. And like I completely forgot about it until I got to that poem in the book, and I got serious flashbacks to studying it when I was 11 years old and reading it loads. And to be honest, that was genuinely one of my favourite poems within the collection. I also really like Morning Song and Tulip and A Birthday Present. So yeah, today I want to get quite a lot of reading done. I'm going to start reading Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. This is for the Muggle Studies exam, which is to read a contemporary. It's quite a big book, it's almost 400 pages, so I'd like to get a fair amount of this read today. It's got quite a big font, so I think I'll be okay with it, you know. I am 267 pages into Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams, and this book is so good. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's such like an addictive novel as well. Like I've really struggled to like put it down and stop reading it. Like I was reading this book until like midnight last night, well technically early this morning, but I easily could have read it for a lot longer. Lately when I've been reading, usually after about an hour of reading, I start to flag a little bit and I need a bit of a break. But when I first sat down to read Queenie, I read 70 pages in like one sitting without a break, which is honestly like really good for me. And for what is quite a long book, it's 392 pages, I feel like I've read this like relatively quickly, and if I had like no other obligations or whatever within my day, I could have like easily read this in one sitting. This book is about Queenie. She's a 25-year-old Jamaican British woman living in London. She works at a national newspaper. This is kind of one of those books that it doesn't necessarily have a plot. At least for myself, I didn't actually really know the plot going into it. All I knew about it was described as a black modern day Bridget Jones. Also, my copy of the book, it doesn't say what the actual like synopsis is anywhere. The general like synopsis is that at the beginning of the book, Queenie and her boyfriend of 3 years go on a break after like months of like arguing and stuff. And so like whilst she's been on like this break from her boyfriend, she's feeling a lot of uncertainty, and she does still kind of like crave like the affection and attention from men in a way. So she's been having a lot of casual sex with men who don't really properly care for her or treat her right, and the sex that she's having is pretty bad. I'm feeling a lot of empathy for her right now, because she has been kind of going through it throughout the whole book. She kind of feels like her life is falling apart a little bit, and it's really sad to see. She's having a lot of issues. She's kind of a hot mess, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. I have over 100 pages left, so I just really hope that she has like a happy ending. There's also themes of like race and gentrification and like family and just life being like in your mid-20s in London. I have just finished reading Queenie, and I am going to be giving this book 5 stars. I loved it. It's such a funny and an incredibly raw book as well. I loved Queenie as a person, and my heart broke for her like multiple times during this book. Some of the stuff she went through as well hit pretty close to home, so like trigger warning for like anxiety, panic attacks, and also like parental abuse, sexual assault, racism. She is pretty self-destructive, and I can understand why some people would dislike her for that. However, the author doesn't ever present her actions as good things really, and I think I really just felt like sorry for it, because it does get to a point in the book where it really is like one thing after another of like things happening to her. It's funny because Queenie is 25 and for some reason I see it as so much older than me when I'm 23, but I'm turning 25 next August. I definitely feel like this is a book I'm going to be recommending and gifting to like all of my friends who are also in their mid to early 20s. So yeah, that's that. I'm really glad I got at least one 5-star read out of this readathon. I broke out of my habit of just rating every book 4 stars, you know. One thing I forgot to mention yesterday, I am halfway through the audiobook of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, and I'm not really sure how I feel about this book at the moment. I don't feel that invested or connected to the plot, and I guess one of the big things about this book is the characters, and do I like any of the characters? Not particularly. It is a historical fiction novel. It's set in the 18th century, and you can very much tell because of like the year it's written in, because the main character Henry, or Monty, he has a sister and his best friend Percy, who really fancies and is in love with. I believe Percy is a person of colour because mentioned a lot about how they are on this like almost like a grand tour of Europe. So they started off in France, and due to some circumstances and a reckless decision that Monty made, they've basically ended up going to Spain as well. There's a lot of mention about how certain like inns or places won't let all of them in because those places don't allow women or people of colour. There's also, because Monty is bisexual, Monty was talking to his sister about like his feelings towards men basically. The word sodomy was brought up a lot, which I don't know, to me is a pretty like outdated term. So yeah, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. For the rest of the book I do hope to give it like, you know, my full attention and try and give it a chance, and I'll let you know how I get on with it, but at the moment it's kind of sitting at 3 stars. I have just finished listening to the audiobook of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. I'm going to be giving this book 3 stars. I won't lie, I am pretty disappointed with it. I thought I would be giving it like a much higher rating because I'd heard really good things about it, but ultimately I just thought the plot was really messy and I just didn't end up connecting with it. Like I said, I didn't really particularly love any of the characters. I quite liked Percy and I liked the chemistry that him and Monty had, but I kind of wanted a bit more, to be honest. Yeah, and it's a shame because when I listened to like the first couple of chapters, I was really liking it and I thought, oh, this is going to be great, and then it all just kind of went downhill a little bit. So it is the 29th at the moment, so the last day of the readathon is tomorrow, and I'm hoping to read Pet by Akwaeke Emzie. This book is only 200 pages long, so I hope to finish reading that by tomorrow, and I just hope it's good so we can end this readathon on a high note and not on a bum note like with the book I've just read. Okay, so it's the 1st of May and yesterday I only read about 70 pages of Pet. Like I said, I did have intentions to read the whole thing in one day, but basically I was really tired and I didn't feel like I was giving this book like the full attention and giving it the chance that it deserves. I decided not to put pressure on myself, and obviously I will finish reading it, just not during the readathon. So if you want to know what I think of it once I finish reading it, then follow me on Goodreads or on my Bookstagram. But either way, I still did read 8 books in April, which is double what I read in March, and it's the most I've read in a month so far this year, and I completed all my required hours and did some extras. So all in all, I'm very, very happy with how I did during this readathon. So to finish this vlog off, I'm just going to do a quick wrap up of every book I read during the readathon. Firstly, The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, 4 stars. The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, which I gave 4 stars. And before that, I feel like I should mention that I DNF'd Serpentendorf by Shelby Maharin. George by Alex Gino, which I gave 4.5 stars. Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzalez, which on reflection I'm now giving 3.5 stars. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs, 3.5 stars again, which is another rating I also kind of changed a little bit upon reflection. Ariel by Sylvia Plath, 4 stars. Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams, 5 stars. And then finally The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee, which I gave 3 stars. So, you know, a fairly decent range of ratings there, mostly positive ones, a lot of 4 stars, a couple of like 3-star books, but all in all it's been a good readathon. If you made it to the end of this vlog, then congrats, give yourself a pat on the back, and if you did enjoy it, feel free to give this video a thumbs up and comment down below if you took part in the readathon and let me know how you did in it. I hope you're all staying safe and well, hope you have a great day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!